Hey guys, sorry for the delay. For some reason, Facebook allows me to go live in some of my groups, but not all of my groups on my desktop, so I got really confused. And you're also getting me with no makeup and in a winter sweater because it's freezing here. That's okay. So I'm trying to find this quote that I wanted to share with you, and of course, Facebook is hiding it. I posted it on my page, and you know, they don't show you all your posts for some reason. They only show you a select few of your posts. Anyway, I don't really understand it. But basically, the reason I'm looking for it so much is because I don't want to not give credit to the woman I heard this quote from. And right now, I'm blanking on her name. But I want to talk about self-discipline. And yesterday, I'm laughing because I read this quote, I read this article on 26 things that happen when you're an adult who's had, you know, emotional abuse or trauma as a child, and who hasn't, right? But for some of us, we take life a little bit more intensely than others. So even though I have a loving and wonderful family, my story, my sort of soul's journey here is to emotionally process like a whole lot of junk. So even though I had a great family, I have a lot of emotional junk to process. So I'm laughing to my boyfriend that on this list of 26 things, which include like addictive tendencies, you know, confusion, blah, 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 there's one, it said self-discipline. And I was like, how is it possible that I didn't get this one? This one that would make my business so much better than, you know, blah, 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 because I could never get anything done and my head spun out into all the things that's wrong with my business, right? So his response was, you have lots of discipline. Why do you think you're not disciplined? I'm just going to go and make sure I'm like, yeah. He goes, you know, you have lots of discipline. What makes you think you don't? And so I thought about it, and then I remembered this quote that this woman, who I want to share you her name, so I will put it in the comments afterwards. She said, I saw her at a conference in Syracuse, and she said, you have plenty of discipline. You're just disciplined to bad habits. And that blew my mind. So I was like, you're right. I am very disciplined. I'm very disciplined to things, and maybe you are too, right? We're disciplined to things like I'm confused. We're disciplined to things like, well, I'll scroll through Facebook and respond to comments, which isn't a money-making activity, right? If you're in business. Or we're disciplined to waking up and sort of looking around and being like, oh, well, I guess I'll have coffee, even though we know that coffee doesn't make us feel good. So it's not that we don't have discipline, it's that we're disciplined to the wrong things. And then I started thinking, you know, last night, so we're now brainstorming, my boyfriend and I, well, what are the things that I'm disciplined to? It's like, oh, well, I'm disciplined to monogamy. That one's easy for me. It's not everybody's choice, but it is mine, so I'm disciplined to it, and it's so natural and easy, I don't even think about it as discipline. And I disciplined to brushing my teeth at least twice a day. I'm disciplined to flossing, which was new, so that took something new. I'm disciplined to, I don't know, all sorts of things. But the point is this quote that I heard from this amazing woman about, it's not that you're not disciplined, it's that you're disciplined to bad habits. Or change that around, habits that aren't in alignment with what you want and desire. And that's really the key, because it's not that we have to all of a sudden like force ourselves to be a different person. Like if you view that you're not a disciplined person, we don't have to become a disciplined person, because that feels impossible, right? Like, oh, well, they're just born that way, or, oh, if only I was that kind of person, if only I had that kind of resolve, if only, you know, I was somebody who just got things done like so-and-so. So if that sounds like something you've thought in your head, it's not that we have to all change ourselves into somebody who's disciplined. It's that we have to change what we're disciplined about, which is a much easier shift, right? So we're not changing everything about us. We're just changing our mind and the way that we look at the things that what self-discipline means and how we apply it. So if we know that, I'm trying to think of an example, and now I'm so excited I'm forgetting. So if you're thinking things like, okay, I'm not disciplined with following through, well, you're disciplined with not following through. So it's not the discipline that's the problem. Does that make sense? This is like a really deep mindset tweak and turnaround. It's not that you're not disciplined. You are incredibly disciplined to not following through. Now we just need to switch the habit. And we can make it easy on ourselves, come up with like a spreadsheet, track it on a big piece of paper on the wall. That's not a piece of paper, but you know what I mean. If you're if you're really disciplined to having a cookie at night, Maybe the discipline is not to rob yourself of the cookie, but to discipline to something else, like watermelon, or discipline to an apple. So you still have the habit. If we insert habit and discipline for the same thing here, you're in the habit of doing something. It's just not the thing you want. So you don't have to change who you are. You don't have to believe that like it's never going to happen for you because you're not that person. We just have to change where it points to, meaning like change where the habit points to. I'm just making sure nobody has commented and I haven't seen it because my phone isn't the best at this. So this is really huge. This is really huge because we can free ourselves of that belief that I'm not self-disciplined. We can free ourselves of I'm never going to be any better. I'm not going to be any different because I'm just not that type of person. Like only those type of people succeed. No, you have discipline. You have all the discipline you ever need. You have habits that support you all day long. You eat, you brush your teeth, you get out of bed, you put on clothes. Like you have habits all day long. So we just have to pick what are the habits that are actually going to be better and do them, right? So it's a process of commitment, but it's also a process of reassignment. So the commitment comes in not in the doing it, right? Because that feels like force. That feels like, oh, I have to do this every day. The commitment comes in and I'm committed to the outcome. Meaning, I want to eat sugar. I have serious issues with sugar. Like, I'm pretty sure I've talked about this. Actually, I'm going to change that in my mind. I used to have serious issues with sugar where I felt compulsively like I needed to eat it. And if I've had sugar, I want more sugar. It's kind of like, a really good drug. And it hooks you like that. And previously, I've really struggled with that. So I have the choice of saying like, well, I have compulsive issues with sugar, and well, I can just have a little bit of sugar, or, I can go down that road with it. And I could beat myself up for every time I have sugar, which I've tried. I have tried that route, and it doesn't really work that well. Or I can be committed to how I feel when I'm healthy. And when I'm healthy, all sorts of things make sense. I can have sugar in moderation because I don't care. I'm really aligned and in allegiance, I love the word allegiance, to the feeling of health in me. And then I'm making choices from that feeling of health. I'm not making choices from where I am now, thinking, well, I have to cut out all of these things in order to be perfect. I'm going to where I want to be and making choices in allegiance with that. So the commitment is not the commitment to discipline yourself into being perfect. That is miserable. That's miserable, and it's a setup for failure. The commitment is to how you're going to feel otherwise, how you're going to feel when you already have it. So it's the commitment to saying, well, I want to feel easeful in my body. Okay, well, what is it going to take to feel easeful? It means I have to breathe deeper. It means I've got to release the tension in my jaw. It means I've got to do some alignment work on my posture. It means, I need to interpret stress differently so it doesn't make me tense up, but I have a way to move it through. It means that my natural instincts, they're not natural instincts, the habits that I've picked up that might get me really spun up, I've got to find new habits, notice when they're happening and interrupt them and find something new. So none of those are about making myself less stressed. They're about allowing myself to feel easeful. Does that make sense? So this is where the commitment comes in. It's commitment to how you want to be and to how that feels. And then we reassign the habit because the habit is already there and the discipline to the habit is already there. It's just in this amazing quote by this woman whose name I can't remember, and I will find it because I want to give her credit. It's just that we're disciplined to bad habits. So we can let yourself off the hook. Let yourself off the hook if you think you're somebody who doesn't have any discipline. You've got discipline. I'm not asking you to be more disciplined. I'm asking you to be disciplined about habits that actually get you where you want to go. And I'm asking you to be committed to how you want to feel. And it's okay if you're not. If you're like, I really want to feel open, but I'm not entirely sure that feels safe, and I'm kind of scared of what it's going to be like, and I'm just not sure I'm ready for that because right now I'm just not ready to live at that space. Like, okay, be honest with yourself and then stop beating yourself up. You're not ready. You're not there. But this is where some people work on health, some people work on money, some people work on relationships, blah, blah, blah. Like, Focus. It's easy. It's okay to focus. We don't have to do everything at once. So I know this. Like, I know, the minute we make that commitment to our bodies or to our minds or to our emotions, we can have it right then, right? We can do the work. It's easy to be focused on it. It's easy to do the right habits because it's our main priority. But if we're not ready yet, if there's still some part of us that's undecided, that's not committed to the outcome and not committed to yourself and how it's going to feel and not committed to what you really want for yourself, you're still fighting with what's wrong with you now and why can't you, then we're not ready. And I do this with food all the time. Like, yeah, I want to feel healthy, but okay, I kind of, it's a little bit of give and take. Like, in my mind, I've connected the dots between being at my absolute healthiest and cooking 8 hours a day because everything was from scratch and having a very restricted diet. And so there's a part of me that's like, I loved how I felt. I don't want to have to do all this work. So I'm not pushing myself, right? I'm naturally going to drop things off and find better habits when I'm aligned with how I felt. But if I try to push myself there, the only way my mind knows how to get there is through this, really, it was a stressful time in my life where I had to cook for 8 hours a day and make everything raw. And it was just, or not raw, but from scratch. And that was a lot. So if I try to push myself through discipline, I'm going to end up going into this like really stressed out space that I needed to let go of. But if I go into it with commitment to how I feel, then I'm allowing for things to naturally fall off. Meaning like, well, I just won't choose sugar today, or I won't choose to have coffee anymore. And it happens because the habits naturally align themselves. I hope this is making sense. So, but I'm also not going to force myself, right? If now's not the time, now's not the time. Maybe you have something really emotional going on in your life and you don't want to have to stress yourself. Now, when you're committed to the outcome, it shouldn't feel like stress. But because when we learn this delicate dance between choosing the outcome and self-discipline pushing, there's a little bit of back and forth and it's not always clear. We still struggle a bit to figure out how to not discipline ourselves. It can add a little bit of stress. But the key is it should feel really good. It should feel really good when you have truly committed to the way that you want to feel and the way that you want to be. The choices you make are effortless. And the ways that you feel are easy. They feel open in the chest, in the body, in the throat, in the breath, in the mind. The mind softens because we're not constantly overthinking. So that's really some of your big cues when you know that you're committed. And then we just check in those moments of expanded spaciousness of, well, what does it then look like? What do I want to do right now to support that? What would feel great in this moment? How would I act in this space? Those kind of questions, instead of starting where we are now and saying, well, how do I get perfect like that person? And I'm never going to be like that because I just can't force myself to do what they do. Because it's not from force. It's not from force. It's from flow. I kind of hate that word nowadays, but what I mean by that, it's a natural inclination once you're committed to that emotional space. So 2 thoughts today. 1, you are disciplined, so let yourself off the hook. It's just that we're disciplined to the wrong habits. And the question is not, do I need more discipline? It's how do I choose better habits? And we choose better habits by being committed to the outcome and the way that you want to feel. So you're not committed to disciplining yourself. That's a recipe for misery, right? We've all been there. It's awful. It's awful. And we beat ourselves up and then we fail. And what a big surprise. We knew we were going to fail to start with because that's not what we think that we are, because we're trying to discipline ourselves into it. We're trying to mold ourselves into some model of perfection. It's not like that. We get committed to how we most want to feel. Committed to the outcome for ourselves. I want to feel healthy. I want to feel aligned. I want to feel easeful. I want to feel spacious, expansive, loving. I know these are vague words, but they have a felt reaction in the body. So find one that has a reaction in your body. Feel it. This is important. It's not a mental exercise. You have to feel it. And so maybe if that's hard for you to do, go out and play, go out for a walk, go out and do something. And as soon as you feel good, be like, oh, how would I describe this feeling? Right? So maybe it's excited. And then from that space, we think, okay, well now, what are the habits that support that? And then we do those habits because you have all the discipline in the world. We just have to reassign it to better habits and commit to how we want to be. I know that sounds simple because it is pretty simple. But just know that you don't need more self-discipline. You don't. That is a recipe for driving yourself crazy. I hope this has been helpful. I'd love to hear about how you most want to feel, and also what habits you think you can reassign. I would love to hear how this is impacting you, particularly if you're somebody that has felt like you needed more self-discipline, as I have. And I constantly to my boyfriend, I'm like, I need self-discipline, blah, blah, blah. And so when he had that moment of like, you're totally disciplined, and I remembered that quote from the lady I will share, and like, right, I am disciplined. And I'm disciplined to good habits, but I'm also disciplined to bad habits. But things like monogamy, never even question it. Things like brushing my teeth, I don't even think about it. But that's discipline. It's discipline, right? So all of this is possible for you, and it becomes that easy, which is why, like, ask somebody. I did this with a client last night. I asked her now where she was a year ago and to come up with some steps, and she's like, oh, well, now that part's so easy, right? It becomes part of your day-to-day life, and you even forget that it was hard at one point. So that's what we're talking about. Commit to the outcome. Find habits that support it. It's pretty simple. But you have discipline. So share in the comments. I'd love to see if this resonates with you, and I'd love to hear what habit or what you actually want, how you want to feel, and what habit you can reassign. Mwah!